The pop-up greenhouse card is quite spectacular, and as ever, printed on the front, I've got the inside here with just one single guideline, and I'll show you how we use that in a moment. Now I've got the greenhouse itself. You can cut that all out. I've put some acetate in the windows here and on the roof as well. You don't have to, it's actually quite strong enough to actually pop up without that. And you've also got another choice. If you don't want to make the greenhouse, you can put a shed on as well. So we've got a shed, and that'll make up exactly the same way. There's a little door you can put on there if you want to as well. So let's look at the greenhouse, because the construction is really identical for both, and we'll start by, obviously everything's cut out and folded. You'll notice with the acetate, if you put it in, you've got to keep it off of all the fold lines, but there is a little guide that comes on the CD, if I can just show you here, that gives you a guide for cutting out the areas on that. So I would use that if you're going to put the acetate on. It does kind of make quite a nice job of that. So with my greenhouse together, let's just glue this. This is one of the important tabs. I'm going to glue this and let that just kind of go where it wants to. Because of the way that I folded this and made it, it's not quite reaching over, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and just push it a wee bit closer than really it wants to go, and then just squeeze it down. So I'm going to allow for that little bit of gap in there, because this ultimately has to dictate the way that it wants to go. If I open that up, you can see we've got a really nice little greenhouse already. We've got some flaps here. They're just for strength. They can be glued, and you can just fold those then back in onto the sides like so, and that just gives a little bit of strength to the top part there. And then we've got the roof as well, which will go on, and that will just attach by the two tabs on the side. Now we can also, if you want to, make for the inside of the greenhouse, there's two alternatives. We've got here tomato plants, which we can have appearing to be growing. I'll just pop that in there and popping up. Or if you don't want to be bothered with all of that and you just think it's too complicated, there's a little wooden trellis which will just fit into the centre of the page. So let's have a look now. We'll do it, I'll show you the most complicated, and then you can work backwards from there. So here we go. This is our I'll remove the lid there. This is where our greenhouse is going to go. You can see that there's a line there, and if you want to just have the greenhouse on there, simply line that up, stick it down, fold it out, put some stick onto that side, pop it down, and up will come a really nice greenhouse for you. Job done. You can, if you want to, just rest that in the middle, and that'll just give you some boards for it to be sitting on. But I want to show you how we do this with the tomato plants. Now these fold up, and they're just going to create a shape within the tomato plants here. It actually acts as the floor. So a couple of tabs on there. We're going to make the two outer bits up and then construct the whole thing in one shot. So let me just show you how that works. I need a fresh bit of paper there. It's starting to go a bit sticky. Right, I'm just going to line this up in the middle, and I'll build the greenhouse up around that. Now that's going to sit right in the middle. That's going to be a rising shape on that, and then the same again for this one over here. A little bit of glue. These are, oops, get some fresh paper there. These, once they're stuck down, are going to be there permanently. They're going to be really hard to get to if ever it comes undone. So at this point you really want to make sure you can make it, just fold that up so you make it stick as well as possible. Lots of rub on there, centre line just running down, and that should just open and close. Again, I'm going to rub that, because there's no going back on this. Once it's in the greenhouse, it's going to be quite difficult to sort out. And they can actually join at that point there, but we're not going to do that just yet, because as the card opens and closes, they're going to to form a joint there. So let's just run a little bit of tape in that part and close it up, and that's the beginning part of the greenhouse there, of the tomato plants rather, and I can push that to one side just to let it glue. Same on the other. I think by moving things backwards and forwards it loosens everything up as well. Okie dokie. So now the next thing to do is we kind of have to glue this all in one half and then shift everything over. So I'm going to glue one part of my greenhouse. I've got some fresh paper here so everything doesn't get too sticky. Lots of glue on this. Again, what I call a strength tab, a major tab. Make sure that everything's coming off that glue gun, and we want that to sit within here, so I'm just going to measure up. That's going to sit on the line there. You see the white line, we've got that there. Let's just rest that up, butt that up to where it needs to be there. I don't want to put it down just yet because I want to make sure that this is fitting nicely within my greenhouse, which it is there. It's just a wee bit shorter, so that goes to there, that there, and the first bit is down. Then the next one is just going to stick onto there like so, and we'll need to have our plants in. So what I'm going to do is just glue the tabs on these. They're folded. Glue tab 1. They can face, I think, inwards or outwards. There's not really much to it, so we'll have those there, and I'm just going to thread them through ready. I'm going to kind of stick them down afterwards, because once they're in they're a bit tricky, but I can just poke something in underneath and get those done. And again, glue along here. I should really protect that with something. Now that's going to be in its upright position, and I'm really cheating with this because I'm just finding it easier to do it this way, because when it's closed, actually I'm going to take those out for a second. When it's closed, that should all find its own way, but gosh, it's tricky like this, isn't it? So by making it, if that makes sense, the shape beforehand, just pushing that down like so, I think that will make my life a little bit easier. And just to help things on its way, I'm going to use my handle of my craft knife here. Tip that up on the side just to show you. Can you see that just sits upright like so? And I've kind of cheated a bit on that. It's just, to be honest, made life a lot easier. In effect, I'm constructing it what I call in position. So now my plants go down, and again I'm just going to pop those. They should stay upright, pretty well upright. So they're coming down, the tabs are hitting on the bottom. We won't be able to see that just yet, and then in again with my craft knife to hold those on the floor. Tip it to the side and you can see what's happening now. So that forms a little shape there which is able to move. Whoops. And I've got my tomato plants there, so let's just feed those into there. Now comes the really tricky bit, because what I want to do is glue this and then that as well, and also have my plants in there. Wow. So I think the first thing to do is just to pop my tomato plants in there, and I'm going to pop that down there like so. Some glue onto there, that one down into there, and just repeat the same again. Just hold those into position with the craft knife. In fact, as that isn't glued, I can get my fingers in. I'm struggling there and I don't need to. Now the tricky thing with this is I've got to glue that on first and then that under there, so it's all really fiddly, to put it mildly. And I've got my tomato plants there, and